Man United's biggest wildcard ahead of the FA Cup final looks in great spirits in training, is not played for months. Manchester United players enjoyed a very wet and rainy training session in preparation for the FA Cup final. It was the type of rainy day in Manchester which players would not expect in mid-May. But when there is a cup final on the horizon, you just get on with it. Even Anthony Martial. The Frenchman has been missing for months, his last match coming in early December against Bournemouth. He then underwent a groin operation in January, while Erik ten Hag admitted that when he did return to training at the start of month, he did not last the full session. He has since returned to training as Manchester United build towards Saturday's FA Cup final. Anthony Martial looks happy during training session. Anthony Martial has been at Manchester United for 9 years, and we have seen it all during that time, the good and the bad. More recently, it's been the bad. His performances this season have contributed 3 goals, but really it was his defeated and unhappy body language which really stood out. Now, with his Manchester United contract expiring, Martial has nothing to lose, and everything to gain from one last shot. He waved goodbye to Manchester United fans during the team's last home game last week. But there's a chance Martial could be utilised at Wembley, if he can win over manager Erik ten Hag. Martial was pictured, enjoying a laugh and joke with Manchester United's senior players, Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro during a training drill. He may be a forgotten man where many fans are concerned, but he is still respected by his Manchester United teammates. Martial shared on Instagram a picture where he was greeted with a big hug from striker coach Benny McCarthy. This is his last ever week training at Carrington, and Martial is ensuring that behind the scenes, it's not as miserable as his on-pitch contribution. Martial is United's biggest wild card. Young winger Ahmad has emerged as a potential X-factor for Manchester United, while Anthony Martial is the biggest wildcard of all. Martial is, at this stage, simply battling to try and earn a place in the matchday squad at Wembley. It's an uphill task with other players returning from injury, including Mason Mount. His involvement will depend on what system Erik ten Hag uses. Will he start Rasmus Højlund or deploy the Dane as an impact substitute like the last 2 games? If Højlund starts, then Martial might get the role as an impact maker. He has a track record against Manchester City, scoring 5 goals against them through the years and winning 6 times. One of his best performances came in 2021 when he didn't even score, winning an early penalty in a behind closed doors 2-0 win. At Wembley, Martial has history, scoring a famous winner against Everton in the 2016 semi-final, sparking jubilant scenes. That won't compare to the pandemonium he will cause if he scores a winner against City this weekend, to bow out on a high. Man United player now pictured back in training ahead of FA Cup final after 3-game absence. Manchester United are hard at work in training ahead of the FA Cup final, and planning has been boosted by the return of one player. Erik ten Hag will finally have an almost fully fit squad this weekend for the FA Cup final, which makes the world of difference considering how many injuries his squad have faced. It's been a season in which Manchester United have suffered an unprecedented number of injuries, which will no doubt have affected the disappointing football Old Trafford has witnessed. But on Saturday at Wembley, United have the opportunity to make this a distant memory by ending the season on a high, and the chances of victory will be helped by one more player returning from injury. Mason Mount makes his return to Manchester United training. Mason Mount hasn't had the first season at United that he'd have hoped for, and it's set to end with him making no more than 20 appearances in all competitions. But in a boost for ten Hag, he's now back in training after his most recent injury and looks likely to be in the squad for the trip to Wembley this weekend. After being photographed on Wednesday in the rain at Carrington, despite his struggles, Mount has come in clutch for United on one occasion this season, scoring late on against Brentford. So with the cup final now on his agenda, he has the chance to rid himself of that bad season and set himself up for a successful year 2. Mount has been out injured for 3 games, and since an injury was picked up in training after the 4-0 loss to Crystal Palace, Mount's return is a massive boost for Erik ten Hag. While the return of Mount may not seem like a huge boost given his struggles throughout this season, it's more of a boost than it may have originally seemed. In recent weeks, injuries have meant that the options on the bench haven't been ideal, with mostly academy prospects and on occasion multiple goalkeepers. Mount returning, along with those who have been in training for the past week or so such as Anthony Martial, means ten Hag has options and can implement different plans. Having a player of Mount's quality on the bench, with a point to prove, could be of real benefit to United against City, considering how tough a game it's going to be. If United are to surprise City and lift the trophy, then it's through using the depth and the likes of Mount to their benefit that it'll happen. Anthony Martial response to Roy Keane jibe and 4 more things spotted in Man United training. Erik Ten Hag put his players through their paces in training on Tuesday as Manchester United gear up to face Manchester City in Saturday's FA Cup final at Wembley. Anthony Martial has been spotted back in training ahead of the FA Cup final this weekend. Manchester United will lock horns with Manchester City at Wembley Stadium on Saturday afternoon, knowing a win could keep Erik Ten Hag in the job. The Red Devils head into the clash following a 2-0 win over Brighton at the Amex Stadium on the final weekend of the Premier League season. Meanwhile, Pep Guardiola's side enjoyed a 3-1 victory against West Ham at the Etihad, defending their title as English champions for a 4th successive campaign. While City will be hoping to get their hands on another piece of silverware, United will be looking to exact their revenge. In last year's FA Cup final, the Red Devils suffered a 2-1 defeat to their local rivals, with Ilkay Gundogan finding an opener in record time. Ahead of what's poised to be a fiery showdown, the Manchester Evening News has taken a look at 5 things which stood out in the latest collection of training pictures ahead of the FA Cup final. Martial returns after Keane and Rooney jibe. Martial was spotted back in action at Carrington, following a couple of digs from Roy Keane and Wayne Rooney. Last week on Sky Sports, the Irishman said, "If you are constantly injured, you are no good to anybody." Okay, every club will have its few injuries. But there are certain players in that group they are always injured. You can't rely on these players to turn up week in and week out and play for Man United. Singing from a similar hymn sheet, Rooney replied, "It is like Martial, for instance. I have played with him. He is a very nice guy. But where has he been? I can't remember the last time I've seen him play. What's up with him?" Keane added, "At least his contract is up. At least that is a plus." You say, listen, on you go. But again, it won't be easy, the rebuild. It's all well and good us sitting round here going, he needs to go. The reality is it's going to be really tough. If he gets the chance to get on the pitch on Saturday, Martial will no doubt be hoping to prove both former United players wrong. The forward looked unfazed by the comments during the session, and his efforts in training hint that could well be ready for a final swan song. Fernandes pulls the strings. Bruno Fernandes was the only player seen donning a blue bib while everyone else wore yellow or orange. This could suggest that the midfielder was the designated Magic Man as part of a larger session. The Magic Man is somebody who plays on the team which is in possession during a rondo or small-sided game. By including this role, the players are encouraged to pass and move while also preparing themselves for transitions and turnovers. Ten had given huge boost. Lisandro Martinez and Rafael Varane were spotted in training, which is a huge boost for Ten Hag. With 2 strong centre-half options available, Manchester United stand a far better chance against Manchester City, who will be looking to pepper Andre Onana's goal with shot, Mount and Højlund chat. Mason Mount and Rasmus Højlund were spotted enjoying a chat while heading out for training. Neither started the 2-0 win over Brighton, although Højlund did come on and bag himself a goal in the dying embers of the game. Perhaps the duo were discussing how they plan to break down and crave open the Manchester City backline. Fans will be hoping that should they appear at Wembley, the duo are fresh and ready for the challenge of trying to win the cup. Onana gears up for Holland's storm. Andre Onana faced plenty of shots in training as he gears up to face Erling Haaland this weekend. The 28-year-old goalkeeper has featured 50 times for Manchester United across all competitions this season, keeping 13 clean sheets. The Cameroon international has been a key player for United this season, following his £47.2 million arrival from Inter Milan last summer. Onana faced City in the Champions League final for his former side last term, so the goalkeeper has a point to prove come Saturday. Despite his best efforts, the Red Devils have struggled to keep the ball out of his net on several occasions this season. But United will need a strong defensive display if they are to beat the odds and end the season on a high against City. With Martinez and Varane back in action, Onana will be hoping for a steely performance from his backline on Saturday.